Hey everyone, welcome back to another painting tutorial. As always, my name is Jay, and I'll be showing you how I paint up this White Warden Imperial Knight, one of the really cool color schemes from the Imperial Knights Codex. So basically for this model, I decided rather than having to do a lot of masking, I separated the model by armor plates and the metal body. And that way it's going to save a lot of time because I don't need to mask anything, I can just glue them on afterwards. So I started off by priming the entire part of the metal body black using Steno-Res black primer. And then with my airbrush, a Badger Patriot 105, I hit the entire section of armor body, metal body with lead Belcher paint. I used the Citadel Air paint, and as you can see, it has so much great coverage to the model. It did so well, and just with a single application for my Patriot 105, I was able to get some great coverage and just cover the entire model very quickly. And I use this also on the arms and the chainsword as well. Basically anything that's not going to be armor plated is going to end up being metallic essentially. So this saves a lot of time by just separating two types of parts and then painting them separately and then gluing them on in the end. I also magnetized the model so I could swap out the weapons if need be. I then applied two individual non-oil shadings to these metallic areas. I really wanted a very, very dark silver to the inside of the model, so it has a very strong contrast between the dark metallics that aren't armor plates, and then the other armor plates will just be a very, very light gray and white. That way there's a really nice contrast to it, and it really makes them stand out. So as you can see, just with a large brush, I applied a really heavy non-oil shading to the body, and then I repeated the process after it was dry again. And when the second shading was completely dry, I then did a light dry brush over the entire surface of the body using Necron Compound. It is the dry paint. I really want to try it. I haven't used the dry paints in a while, so I really want to give them a chance. I just did a nice dry brush over the entire surface of the body, as you can see here. It really does, it picks up on the details and brings the edges back to life, and as well as it restores a little bit of a shine. That way it's not too completely dull on the inside of the metallics. And I focused on all the raised surfaces, and of course I made sure to dry brush perpendicular to the surface. And when that was completely done, I then hit up all of the areas that are going to be brass with Brass Scorpion. Basically the chimneys and the part of his giant melt-a-gun will be Brass Scorpion. And I just applied it nice and thick to the surface. That way it goes on really heavily. I really wanted the brass to be a good, strict, once again, just to stand out and be a very good contradiction to the silvers. You see there's a nice contrast. And of course, it provides another metallic color to this color scheme. I then hit up the surface of these areas with Agrex Earthshade. Since it is a brown metallic, it's good to match it with a brown shade, which will once again dull it down significantly, and then I'll just bring it back up with another dry brush. While that was drying, I then painted all the coiled wiring around the model with gray liner. Gray liner is an off black. It's a very, very dark matte gray from the Reaper range, and I like to use it, and it's from Reaper, so it's very thin. You can apply it directly from your palette without any thinning it down, and it just goes on really nicely and maintains the details of the coiled wiring. If you apply it too clumpy, what essentially you'll do is you'll remove those details, but not with this particular paint. It's really nice, and once again, it just provides another dark color for the inside of the body to contrast the really nice and light colors that we'll be using on the armor plating for this color scheme. For his eyes, I really want to do a red and a bit of a glow to the center of the red, so I used some thinned down Mephiston red, I thinned down some Lamia medium, and just applied it to the entire parts of the eyes. Now you're not actually going to see that much of the eyes, but when you carefully look into it, it's just a nice detail that will really stand out, kind of an Easter egg when people are looking at your model. And then for the center of the eye, I just start off with Evil Sun Scarlet, just doing the very center of these eyes, leaving the perimeter of them the Mephiston red, and then with Wild Rider red, thinning down each one with Lamia medium. I then returned, and I wanted to give it a try, because a lot of the other tutorials I've seen, they use Necron Compound as a highlighting color for brass, so I wanted to give it a try, and I think it actually looked pretty good in the end. So I, once again, went over these areas with a Necron Compound dry brush. And it really does age it, I find, really significantly. It gives it a really aged appearance. And then I took some Iron Breaker and just basically did an overbrush of certain areas that I really wanted to bring out the shine and give it some contrast. Like, once again, make it interesting. So I did all of the tubing, as you can see here, and just certain areas that I really wanted to just make them stand out and make them really bright and pop versus the very dark background. Now it's time to start on the armor plating. So what I did was I primed all of the areas that are going to be gold black, and then I primed all the areas that are going to be gray using gray Steinores primer. When that was done, I then used my Sotar 2020 because I really wanted a nice precise spray pattern, and I hit up all these armor plates with Dusty Ground, which is the light gray color from the Minotaur range. It's nice and airbrush ready, so it didn't require any thinning down. And as you can see, I just built up a nice gray, leaving a bit of darkness in the shadows, and on the inside of the plating, basically I just established a quick shadowing, knowing where I'm going to keep in the shadows, such as the inside of the legs or on the inside of the platings. And I just built up a nice gray coat of Dusty Ground, which is almost, as I said, it's almost a white, but it's not. It's a little bit off of white. It's a very light gray. And then I hit all these areas with a satin varnish because I really wanted to get a couple coats of protection on them in case I made a mistake later. This is a nice saving point, and it will also provide just a nice satin finish to the armor plates. I don't want them to be that shiny. A nice satin finish is what I want to achieve. For the pattern, I took some white scars, and of course I thinned down using Lamia Medium, and I just created a squiggly pattern. Basically, my goal was to create kind of a webbing, an intricate pattern of webbing or almost like veins going along the armor plates. And so what I did was basically I just created a squiggly pattern, and I intentionally tried to keep it random. I didn't want it to be consistent, and then what I frequently did was just change the angle of webbing and allowed them to intersect, and that's basically it. As you see, I just frequently changed up my angle and went from one to the other, and just constantly did these wavy patterns of white along the armor plating. As you see, it kind of looks like veins in the end, or a web, but that's what I'm essentially going for, just frequently changing up my pattern, keeping waves going, and keeping them intersecting in various ways and shapes. It took a little bit of time, but it was a lot of fun to do. I always love doing freehand on these large models. It's just fun to do these patterns. And the key is obviously use thin paints and frequently clean off your brush so that it isn't going too clumpy and end up doing a clumpy pattern. And then use a nice sharp brush. As you see, just constantly changing my angle. And after all that was done on all the armor plates, I hit it again with the satin varnish because I wanted to protect this pattern. Since it just took me so long to work on it, a nice satin varnish will once again create a nice saving point and protect this in case I make a mistake later with my alcohol-based paints. I can easily clean them off using some rubbing alcohol or mineral spirits, depending on what paint I screwed up on. So once again, just create a nice saving point. Always good to do throughout your painting. And then I went and applied the gold to all of the perimeters of the armor plates. They're going to be in gold. I went with old gold because I just wanted that older gold appearance on it. Something like an Imperial Knight, especially with the character that is supposed to be attached to the White Warden color scheme, because it's the White Warden individual Imperial Knight. I really want to go with that old gold appearance, so obviously it was easily to accomplish with the old gold from Vallejo Liquid Gold. And as always, I cut it with a 99% isopropanol. That way it's nice and bright. I find the best results when you use a stronger alcohol. And I frequently cleaned off my brush, that way it didn't go into clumpy, and just took my time because I didn't want it to screw up my my armor plates that I've been spending so long on. But as you can see, it has such a nice, beautiful shine to it straight from the bat. And then I went to yellow, so then I masked off certain areas. I'm going to do a couple lines on each side of the Chainsword, and then I hit them with a coat of Averland Sunset. Once again, this is the Citadel Air Paints. Amazing coverage from them. Takes a little longer to clean out your airbrush. And then for the shield and banner, I masked off two individual parts. I'm going to do the opposite corners with Averland Sunset and then highlight them up. And then I just did it one at a time, varnished them, and then remasked the part, and then repeated the process essentially. And for the face, I just did the top left and bottom right corners. And then, as you can see here, then I'm hitting up the center parts of each part of the banner with Eero Yellow, leaving the exterior, the part around the edges, the darker color, and then highlight up on the face as well. I masked off the face with Silly Putty, and I masked off the rest with masking tape. And then I repeated this process just to get a nice the corners. I then painted all of the piping and the exhausts on the top with lead belcher. Once again, the dark silver from Citadel. This was not the air, this is just the normal lead belcher. And I just went along, took my time, didn't want to ruin my nice paint job. And just painted up all the exhausts and all the tubing on these parts. As you see, the dark silvers provide a really nice contrast to the light grays and the whites. I then hit it all with a non-oil shading. First I hit all the metallics with a non-oil shading, and then later I will apply it to all the recesses of the armor plates. I really wanted to get the recesses a little bit darker and to stand out, which is another great reason to provide the satin varnish, because it creates a really nice surface tension for these things. And then I highlighted them up once again with a nice dry brush of Necron Compound. I'm actually really happy with the Necron Compound. I really haven't used it that much, but in my painting tutorials, as you know, and it's a nice dry brush color. I then took a nice fine brush and applied a non-oil shading into all of the recesses of these armor plates. Once again, just took my time, and if I provided any excess, I just wiped it off quickly with my finger. And the multiple coats of satin varnish that I did throughout this tutorial really did create a nice surface tension and allowed me to just wipe off any excess nicely. You can just use a dry brush or your finger, and allows it to really pull into the recesses without getting over the other details. And then it's going with all the other armor plates that had these recesses on them. There's the centerpiece, like this at the very center of the chest. And then for the center part of the chest, which has a banner, I started off with Ushabti Bone, and please note that this is upside down, and it's very important to keep the orientation. Make sure you know which side is up, because I will be just doing a little bit of writing on this banner. So as I said, start off with Ushabti Bone, then hit it with Agrex Earthshade. And then I also wanted to tone down there's a symbol on the head on this part that it will be gold as well, so to tone it down and provide a little bit of contrast, that way it doesn't completely blend in with the background, I also hit it with an Agrex Earthshade. And then hit this with the banner as well, just to provide some aging. And then for the leaves along the symbol on the top, I start off with Warpstone Glow, a nice olive green basically. Of course, I should mention I thinned down all my GW paints with laminated medium, that way they go on nice and thin, don't obscure any details. I then hit it with a Bile Tan Green shading. That way it gets the recess and brings out the leaves and really makes it that strong appearance, the strong details. When the Agrex Earthshade was dry, I then highlighted up the banner with once again with Ushabti Bone, and then did an edge highlight with Screaming Skull. Just an edge highlight along the edges, just make it really stand out and pop. I then took my time and wrote Victarian, the name of the specific leader on the banner. So I took my time, and just one letter at a time, wrote it out. It just took a little while. The key is to have nice, steady hands. I like to prop up my elbows when doing this, and thin down paints, and make sure it doesn't go too clumpy. Victarian. And of course, make sure you know which way's up and down, because with this piece in particular, it kind of looks like it should be upside down. I then took some Raven Black and applied it to any area that there'd be a soot buildup, so the Melta end of the gun. And as I said, I did both ends of the guns, both types of guns, and I just magnetized them both so they can swap out easily. And then I applied just a brief weathering pattern. So build up of soot on all the guns and the chimneys. I just protected the ends with my gloves. And I did this with all the other exhausts as well, parts of any vent. And then what I did was just quickly blocked it with my fingers. Quick masking, didn't take very long. That we don't need to mask a lot. And this was all when the Bile-Tan green was drying. So then afterwards I just returned to it and did a quick highlight. That's it. So then I highlighted up the leaves with moot green, just a quick edge highlight. And the model is now complete. So I just put it all together, and here's what the model looks like in the end. I did a couple freehand swords on the banner and the shield. And yeah, it turned out awesome. I had a lot of fun painting him. I really love the white wavy line pattern on all his armor. And I love the contrast between the really light armor, the yellows, the whites, the grays, and the dark metallics of the body. And in the end, I think it turned out really awesome. And he was a lot of fun to paint up. I can't wait to paint my next Imperial Knight, because I can't wait to get another one and paint him up, because it was a lot of fun to paint up. And painting them separately saved so much time to not have to mask it off. It was a lot of fun just to paint it separately and then put it together in the end. So as always, thank you so much for watching this painting tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed it and learned a bit about painting Imperial Knights. I had a lot of fun painting this model. Stay tuned for more painting tutorials, and as always, thank you so much for watching and subscribing to my videos. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Stay tuned for more videos. Until next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting, everyone.